Winter, 1944. A remote prisoner of war camp in Canada. The German POWs had been there for months, far from the front lines, far from cities. Just endless forest, and snow that seemed to fall without ever stopping. They were used to routine. Cold mornings, thin sunlight, guard towers half buried in snowdrifts, the distant sound of axes from Canadian workers cutting timber. But that morning, something was different. A low rumble rolled through the valley. At first, they thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear, pale blue, painfully bright against the snow. The rumbling got louder. Men stopped shoveling. One prisoner, a former mechanic named Otto, slowly stood up, squinting toward the tree line. Then they saw it. Something massive was moving through the forest road beyond the camp fence. Tall, metal, crawling forward with a deep grinding roar. Snow exploded outward in huge waves on both sides of it. Otto's face drained of color. "Panzer," he whispered. Others gathered, silent, tense. Some had fought on the Eastern Front. They knew what heavy armor looked like in winter, but this machine looked wrong. It had no visible turret, no gun barrel, just a giant metal blade at the front, taller than a man, pushing through snow like it weighed nothing. The guards in the towers didn't seem alarmed. That confused the prisoners even more. "Why would they bring a tank here?" someone muttered. "To move us?" another said quietly. "To another camp? Or worse?" The machine roared closer. Its engine howled. Tracks clanked. Snow sprayed 10 meters into the air. From a distance, through swirling white powder, it looked like some kind of unstoppable armored beast. A young prisoner named Carl swallowed hard. "They're preparing," he said. "The Allies are advancing in Europe. Maybe they think we'll try something." No one answered. Because deep down, many of them had the same thought. This wasn't just a vehicle. This was a message. The machine turned toward the main road leading directly past the camp fence. Now they could feel the vibrations through the frozen ground. Men stopped breathing. Some instinctively stepped back from the wire, as if the machine might suddenly turn and charge. Otto stared, trying to understand the design. No turret, no markings, strange shape. The engine revved. The giant metal blade dropped lower, and with a thunderous shove, the machine slammed into a wall of snow taller than a house, and cleared it in seconds. A perfectly clean road appeared behind it. The guards? They were laughing. One even waved at the driver. The prisoners looked at each other in confusion. "What kind of war machine waves back?" Carl asked. The massive vehicle rolled past the camp, close enough now for them to see the cab. Inside sat a man in a thick winter coat, sipping from a metal thermos. No helmet, no weapon. Just a bored expression. Otto blinked. "That's not a tank," he said slowly. The machine roared off down the road, carving a path through snow like it had done this 1,000 times. Silence hung over the camp. Finally, one of the older prisoners exhaled and shook his head. "Gentlemen," he said, almost embarrassed, "I believe we were just terrified by a snowplow." No one laughed. Not yet, because for a few long minutes, they had been absolutely certain war had found them again. The road stayed clear all afternoon. That alone confused the prisoners. Every few hours, the giant machine returned, roaring past the camp fence, pushing fresh snow aside like it was nothing. Each time it came, men instinctively stopped what they were doing and watched in silence. But now, the fear was fading. Curiosity was replacing it. Otto, the former mechanic, stood near the wire again when the machine made its third pass. This time, he didn't flinch. He studied it. The shape, the blade, the wheels behind the tracks, the way snow curled and rolled instead of exploding like debris from a shell. "That's no armored vehicle," he muttered. "It's built to move snow, not survive artillery." Carl stepped beside him. "So, we panicked over a winter cleaning machine?" Otto didn't answer, because just then the machine slowed down, right in front of the camp. The engine idled loudly, rattling the frozen air. Several guards walked out to the roadside, grinning like schoolboys. One of them, a tall Canadian with a wool scarf wrapped up to his nose, motioned toward the prisoners. "Hey, you fellows see our secret weapon?" he called out jokingly. Most of the prisoners didn't understand English well, but tone doesn't need translation. The guards were teasing them. The cab window opened, and the driver leaned out. Middle-aged, red cheeks, big gloves. No weapon, no rank insignia, just a tired man doing his job. He lifted his thermos like he was making a toast. Even some of the prisoners couldn't help staring. Carl finally spoke. "We thought it was a tank." One of the guards burst out laughing. "A tank? That old thing?" he said. "That's a snowplow, friend. Clears the road so supply trucks don't get stuck." Another guard added, "Biggest battle it ever fought was against a snowbank last Tuesday." A few prisoners exchanged looks. Then, slowly, the tension cracked. One of the older Germans shook his head and actually chuckled. "All those years of training," he said in German, "and defeated by Canadian weather equipment." Even Otto smiled. The driver revved the engine playfully and angled the blade to shove a fresh pile of snow off the roadside, sending a dramatic wave sliding down the embankment. The guards clapped sarcastically. A few prisoners near the fence gave cautious, awkward half-waves. The driver waved back like a man greeting neighbors, not enemies. And, just like that, the most terrifying machine they had seen in months became part of the daily routine. But the story didn't end there. Because over the next few weeks, the snowplow driver, whose name they would learn was Bill, became something unexpected. The man who accidentally reminded them what normal life looked like. He'd stop sometimes, talk with the guards, complain about the cold, offer jokes no one translated properly, and every time that engine roared in the distance, prisoners no longer thought of battle. They thought, the road is being cleared again. War had followed them across oceans, but in that frozen corner of Canada, the loudest, most frightening machine turned out to be nothing more than a man trying to get home before supper. By the time winter began to loosen its grip, the snowplow was no longer the war machine. It had a nickname now. Among the prisoners, they called it Der Schneepanzer, the snow tank. Not with fear, with a kind of embarrassed affection. Whenever its engine echoed through the valley, men would look up from their chores and smirk. "Careful," someone would joke. "The Allies are attacking the snow again." Even the guards played along. One afternoon, as the snowplow crawled past the fence, Bill, the driver, gave a dramatic, slow salute from the cab. One of the prisoners snapped to attention and returned it with exaggerated seriousness. For a brief second, both sides laughed. No speeches, no grand gestures, just a shared moment in the middle of a war none of them could escape. Years later, some of those men would go home. They would remember battles, retreats, loss. But a few would also remember something smaller. The day they stood in a frozen camp in Canada, hearts pounding, terrified of a giant metal beast in the snow, only to discover it was just a man clearing a road so other people could get where they needed to go. And somehow, that ordinary machine became proof that the world outside the war was still there, waiting.